Yes, even children were subjected to slavery. We ever watch the film Apocalypto? Yeah, Apocalypto demonstrates how slaves were captured in the villages.
We are still in Anomabo, and you know the town of Anomabo has some interesting places you need to know. Mr. Ful-Chiq-King is going to be our tourist guide for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
Yeah, so you are welcome to Anomabo, a very historic town or village in those days. By this I would say it's a town. Right now we are in our festive mood, because the town is celebrating the Chief Festival, and everywhere you go, you hear music. That is, the town is very, very joyous, because God has given us a blessing. We still live for another 1 year, and then we work with God. So we welcome you to the Heroes Garden. Yeah, so you are welcome to the Heroes Garden. We are visiting a destination that has 2 sites. And the first one is the Heroes Garden, and the second one is the Year of Return. Yeah, the Heroes Garden was finished and commissioned on 24th February 2007 during Ghana at 50th Independence Celebration, and the commission was done by His Excellency the former President John Aggrey, President of the Republic of Ghana, during that time. So you are welcome. We shall go to the statues, and we shall speak about the statues of historical importance to both Anomabo and the world. So we are looking at the statue of Dr. Emmanuel Aggrey. Yeah, when we talk of the Heroes Park, it consists of 3 statues of important personalities that contributed immensely to the growth of both the Gold Coast and Ghana. And the first one we are looking at is Dr. James Emmanuel Aggrey, Aggrey of Africa. He was born in 1875 and died in 1927. He was 52 years. Yeah, he was educated in Anomabo. He was one of the earliest students of Infantipe. Yeah, so he had his education at Infantipe through scholarship. After Infantipe, he continued to America, first at Livingston College, then later at Columbia University, where he had his MA, DD, and PhD in philosophy. I therefore refer to Aggrey as a man of titles, because even in the 1800s, this man had such titles like MA, DD, PhD, which is very hard for students of this 21st century even to have. So that is Aggrey for him. So in America, he became an educator and a philosopher. He taught and preached for some time. In America, he came face to face with the segregation between the white and black, and he wanted to unite these races. He will use the start of the keyboard, which is the white and black, to demonstrate that if the white and black start of the keyboard could give harmony to music, that means that both white and black could live so peacefully in harmony. Yes. And you know, after that, during one of his preachings, when he sees that his fellow black men were downhearted, he will encourage them with such words like, only the best is good enough for the African. He returned to the Gold Coast to be the first vice principal of Prince of Wales College, which is now Achimota. In fact, it was Achimota that he saw that females were not allowed to go to school. So he pioneered female education with his famous speech like, when you educate a man, you educate an individual, but when you educate a woman, you educate the whole nation. Yeah, a saying that touched the hearts of many many people of the Gold Coast and even the whole Africa. Yeah, so finally, Aggrey pioneered female education on the Gold Coast in Africa and parts of even the United States of America. That was why he was nicknamed Aggrey of Africa, because he traveled to many African countries championing the education of females. And because of his efforts, many schools have been named after him. We have Aggrey in Anomabo, Aggrey in Cape Coast, in Accra, in Takrady, even in the northern region. We have dormitories, halls of secondary schools and universities named after this great man. Only last year, for the government to honor him, his head was placed on one of our 5 seats. Yeah. Yes. And for the government to honor him, his head was put on one of our 5 seats. Yes. And that was to honor one of the most illustrious sons of the Gold Coast who pioneered female education, which has helped women to climb to the education ladder in Africa. Yes. So the second man among the heroes in the garden is Amon the Fourth. Amon the Fourth. Yeah. I mean, chiefs of Anomabo has the title of Amon. Yeah, and this one was Amon the Fourth. And he ruled Anomabo for 19 years. That was from 1860 to 1879. 19 years. Which is considered to be the longest serving chief Anomabo has ever had. Because in those days, because of kingdom wars, chiefs do not last on their throne. They will lead warriors to wars. They were so easily killed. But Amon was able to spend almost 19 years on the throne. That shows how capable he was during his chieftaincy. I refer to his period as the scramble for Ghana, because in those days there were almost about 7 European countries that are on the Gold Coast taking the gold and the slaves. There was no any local organization to talk on behalf of the blacks. And so in the 1860s, there was the need for the establishment of one of such organizations. And the first one to be established with the help of Amon the Fourth was the Fanti Confederation. Yeah, so the Fanti Confederation, established in 1868, became the ever first political or rebel group established on the coast to mobilize the black people to fight for their freedom. And the idea for the setting up of the liberation movement came from Amon, supported by other chiefs, to establish the Fanti Confederation. Yeah. And they achieved the one achievement was that of the organization was that they were able to mobilize almost about 1,000 fighters to fight on behalf of their brothers and sisters in the western region when the Dutch has totally taken over a village in the western region. Yes, that is Disco. When the Dutch has taken over, totally taken over Disco and its lands, the liberation movement of the Fanti Confederation mobilized almost about 1,000 fighters to fight on behalf of their brothers and sisters.
Thank you.
Yes, the youngest of them, Ferguson. He was 33 years. He was the youngest of them. And because he was 33 years and achieved a lot for the Gold Coast, we refer to him in the gardens as the Junior Jesus. Because though he was so young, but he left a mark on the Gold Coast. He was also educated at Infantipen, but he continued to Sierra Leone, then later ended up at the London School of Mines, where he became the first cartographer of the Gold Coast. We talk of the cartographer and we are talking of the surveyor. So any work of the surveyor was brought by George Ekun Ferguson after he graduated from the School of Mines in London, coming to the Gold Coast here as the first ever surveyor the Gold Coast has ever produced. He came to meet the governorship of Gatlinburg, who launched the first ever 10-year development plan of the Gold Coast. Through that plan, George Ekun Ferguson helped the governor to build projects like Kolebu Teaching Hospital, railway lines from Sekendi to Kumasi to Awaso, secondary schools and technical schools, and other projects that were done during this period. All the drawings for the secondary schools and the hospitals and the railways were done by this man. Later, when the government needed someone to demarcate all the lands of the Gold Coast, the task fell on the shoulders of this man, though he was so young. So he was tasked to come up with a map of Ghana or to demarcate all the lands of Ghana. Apart from that, he was also sent to the north as a slave abolitionist. So even though he was doing his work and he went to the north there and he saw people doing the slavery and wanting to stop the slave trade, there was misunderstanding between his group and the people of the slave traders who were Samori and Babatu. And through that war, unfortunately, George Ekun Ferguson, who has been sent to the north to demarcate the lands and also be as a peace broker to broker peace between the northern territories and the English government, was killed, unfortunately, and buried at war because the chiefs even in the north will not allow his body to be brought back to the coast because they all held him in high esteem for his efforts in uniting the people of the north to the people of the south through the coming out of the Ghana map. As we see it. Yeah, so on the Ghana map as produced by George Ekun Ferguson, we see other statues representing the year of return program as launched by the government in 2018 to encourage our brothers and sisters in the diaspora who have found their roots to the Gold Coast, which is now Ghana, to come back and help rebuild the country. So we are looking at various statues that represent various countries that had slaves from the Gold Coast. So we are looking at the gigantic man from America. You know, we had many slaves taken to American cities like New York, Chesapeake, Charleston, Carolina, Boston, Rhode Island, Virgin Island, Georgia, Mississippi, Virginia, New Orleans, all has it. Then from Brazil had almost about 4.5 million blacks from the Gold Coast to Rio de Janeiro, to Rio de la Plata, Pernambuco, Recife, Bahia. Then at the top of Brazil, we have the Guianas. So we have French Guiana, English Guiana, Dutch Guiana, Suriname, Trinidad and Tobago. Then we have the Caribbean, the dreadlocks. And to Caribbean we have Cuba, Puerto Rico, Jamaica, Panama, Antigua, Costa Rica, Barbados, St. Kitts and Vincent, St. Thomas, Haiti, Gundalab, St. Kitts, and many. Slaves were sent to Java, to Indonesia, to Sri Lanka, and to Malaysia, then to Mexico, then to Canada. We talk of Maroons and we are talking of those who ran away from their masters and entered the forest and they could not be brought back, where they established their villages, which has now become important cities and countries bordering Brazil at the east, at the west, and we are talking of Peru. Yeah, so we are in one of the most historic famous forts on the coast, though less known, but very historic, very famous. This one was purposely for the slave trade. That is why we have slave trade pictures over here to demonstrate how the slaves were treated before even they were put in the Ganges, before their final shipment to the American and the Caribbean islands. So we are looking at a punished slave. Yeah, she is punished by hanging. So you see how they hang people on the plantation. They don't put the rope on the neck. Rather, this includes some of the punishments meted out to the slaves. This one is stripped mercilessly. This one is put in a barrel with the hot water or hot oil. We are looking at slaves who have landed in America. So slaves will land in America in such state, devastated. Why? Because maybe captured in the north, they walk for a very long distance to the coast. They never bath, they never cut their hair, spend 3 months on the ocean. They reach with the dreadlocks. Yes, even children were subjected to slavery. We ever watch the film Apocalypto? Yeah, Apocalypto demonstrates how slaves were captured in the villages and brought to the coast. So they will put the sticks, they will walk for a very long distance before they reach the coast, before their final shipment to the Americas. Almost about 1,500 at the time. King Leopold, one of the most wicked kings ever to settle on the African coast, masterminding the shipping of almost about 2.5 million blacks to America. Some of our women subjected to rapings, yeah, even children. A ship could load almost about 1,500 slaves at the time in the 1800s and making the journey to America. Then there was no transportation. Officers were carried in a hammock. Slaves could be listed into the army of America or other places. You see the heavier ones. Yes, being enlisted into their various military establishments. Yes. The building itself is 268 years. Fort William, built by the British. The British were the third European country to come to the Gold Coast. The first were the Portuguese. They came in 1482. The Portuguese came for the gold. That is why the colony was first called Gold Coast. I mean, gold was everywhere. I mean, and they landed at a village now called Elmina. Elmina simply means the mines, because they saw the gold. They thought there were mines that produces the gold, but there were no mines. So the gold was just part of the sand of the village. People walk, played, trampled, did everything with gold. Yes. So the Portuguese took opportunity of this and shipped the gold for 130 years. That was from 1482 up to 1612. The Portuguese were the only strongest European nation shipping quantities of gold from the Gold Coast to Portugal and Europe before they started the slavery. And other nations came inside, like the Dutch, British, Sweden, Denmark, Germany, and France. So this one was built by the British, purposely for the slave trade. We used to buy slaves for 112 years. The first ship was about 280,000 slaves to America. Yeah, and because the fort was purposely for the slave trade, the fort was filled with a slave buying center or slave auction room. And before we enter the slave auction room, we have a map here to demonstrate where some of the slaves came from. Slaves were captured as far as Chad, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger. They walk on foot to the coast. They had resting places like Paga in the north, then Salaga in the middle belt, then finally at Hassan Mansour, where the slaves had their last bath ritual to wash away the dirt accumulated during their travels from the north to the south. Then they were brought to the forts and castles to be held in the dungeons for onward journey to the Amon. The fort very, very unique. Yeah. The fort still has the old platform for the sale of the slaves. The slaves stood on it for the auction. In the 1700s, when money was introduced into the system, a man standing on the platform will cost 5 English pounds, and a woman will cost 3 English pounds. The children were still bartered for the commodities like the tinapa and the milk and the corned beef. And most of these children were considered to be stubborn children. So stubborn children were offloaded to the whites for the commodities. For sugar, for milk, tinapa, sugar, corned beef, and all those things. And household utensils with rum and gunpowder and all those ones also played a major role for exchange. But it did happen, you know. And you see, very, very unfortunate. You come to Anomabo and then you see Fort William and you never heard of the fort before. But you come here and we tell you it was one of the leading slave centers. Yes, because you see this place. In fact, after they stopped to buy the slaves, the fort was made a prison. And then because of the prisons, visitors were not allowed to come even to Anomabo or to even the fort. And the emphasis shifted to Campus and Elmina. Other than that, when we talk of the slave history, Anomabo is regarded to be the slave leading supply center on the Gold Coast in the 1800s, supplying almost about 464,000, as against 381 at Campus and 255 at Elmina. Unfortunately, we don't hear much about the fort and Anomabo in the slave history because of the prisons for 38 years, and our visitors were trooping to Campus and Elmina. And so because of the prisons, this place was a kitchen. You see the black clouds and everything. Then after they were dead over here, passing through the buying center after the auction, then they were held in the dungeons. We are entering one of the dungeons for the females. So the females, are 3 dungeons. This one for the mature women, and the mature women were from 15 to 25 years. Lots of them were held to 25 years. There were the smaller ones. This one was for the younger girls. So we had a younger girl from 10 to 14, mature woman from 15 to 25 years, and another one for the concubines who were selected by the whites to be their wives, because they don't need their wives. Yes. So among these 3 slaves, the women here, the mature women, and the concubines. So the concubines were the only one allowed to bath and clean themselves regularly. The remaining women here will bath once in 2 weeks, and the men bath once a month as they wait for arrival of the ships. The commonest food given to the slaves were bread and biscuits that would tighten the stomach to eliminate constant feces as they were held in the dungeon. And because of that, toiletry facilities were offered at the corners of the dungeons like this one. This one, it was a toilet for the slaves here. But because of the prisons, the floor was cemented and the walls painted. Other than that, stone floor, so the slaves slept, stood, squatted, and did everything on stones while they were in the dungeon. They will be here for 3 months before the arrival of the ships. We are visiting the men dungeon, and that means that the men were separated from the women and were held far away. They were chained, the chain was fixed to the hand. The men were going to lots of them, almost about 300 of them were here at the time. They had only one ventilation. Spending almost about 3 months here standing and squatting, eating only bread and biscuit for the duration of almost 3 months. Some of them proved to be very stubborn and resistant. So among the men, we have those who were referred to as the calm one, or the divided. The calm ones were held there. So almost about 300 of the calm ones held here, put in chains, and the stubborn ones sent to the condemned cell. So the condemned cell, and the condemned cell were for those who were very resistant to the virus. Yes, the condemned cell for resistant slaves. The place is very, very small, but as many as who proved to be stubborn were all held here, put in chains. And their main punishment was to drop their food through the ventilation hole for them to fight for it. It resulted in the survival of the fittest. The strong have some to eat. The weak ones will go until they die. About 1/3 of all slaves held in the condemned cell would die before arrival of ships. They were all put into the sea for big fishes like sharks and whales. Then the remaining ones, with the arrival of the ships, passed through the gate of no return to join the ships to the Americas. So we shall go to the gate of no return. The gate of no return. On the arrival of the ship, the slaves were brought outside. The men in their chains, the women died. Yeah, so when they pass through the gate of no return, the ships will be at sea, about 1 nautical mile away from the shore. Then the slaves will be taken with the smaller canoes to the ships. In the 1800s, a ship could load almost 1,500 slaves at a time. They spent 3 months on the ocean, referred to as the Middle Passage. In between this Middle Passage, any slave who falls sick was put into the sea. Or if there are short of ration, that is food and water, some of the slaves were dumped into the sea to ensure the lives of the remaining slaves. And when there are storms to cause shipwreck, some of the slaves were dumped into the sea to make the ships lighter on the ocean, as it happened song dropped almost about 132 Africans into the sea when they met a bad weather, thereby creating the Bermuda Triangle, where marauding spirits of dead slaves will never allow ships